I don't know how much rock and roll can encompass, you know, whether, for instance, the idea of a woman in her 40s singing rock and roll. It's possible if the woman could do it, but I don't know if it's possible that the people would accept it, you know. That's one area of people's acceptance of women which has not yet relaxed that much. Which is some woman who's, say, 45 or 50 or something, like going up and going, crazy on you, okay, and everybody's into some other kind of music, you know. I mean, rock moves so fast that I don't know whether it will accept age. I think it better decide pretty soon, because me and Nance and Debbie Harry and Stevie and Chris and Chris Hind are not going to be young forever.
The Times would indeed decide to accept age. 50 years into her career, she is still kicking it out with the band Heart, and was born on June the 19th of 1950. Her younger sister Nancy would come along 4 years later, with the duo settling into the band Heart, eventually taking control of that band, which today still performs to sold-out crowds.
They are Ann and Nancy Wilson of Heart, two of the most visible and successful women in rock and roll. Ann writes most of the lyrics and sings lead vocals in 3-octave soprano, while her little sister Nancy dreams up the music. It's a successful powerhouse combination which has produced such hits as Magic Man, Crazy on You, Barracuda, Heartless, and Even It Up.
I've heard about you two, that you started your career in a church. Is that true?
I've heard about you. Well, yes, it's true. Actually, the first time we played in a church, but we played a Doors song when the music's over, so it wasn't exactly a religious experience, you know.
The people got up and walked out.
Yeah.
But it isn't. But it has changed during the years. The people are not going to walk out anymore. Your voice, Anne, is not the real rock and roll voice. I mean, normally they scream, the girls who sing rock and roll, and you have a very good voice. Do you prefer singing ballads, or do you like the rock songs?
I think I like them both equally, you know. I think that ballads are more challenging, but rock and roll is more exciting, so I'll take them both.
We spoke with Ann and Nancy about the early days of Heart back in 1975.
It took really a long time for us to catch on. We just would go to, you know, Allentown, Pennsylvania, and we'd get Pennsylvania, and then we'd go down to the South, and we'd get the South. And
there's always Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan.
Yeah.
Let us not forget.
Regina. Lovely place.
Sudbury. All those places.
And that's why it took a long time. It took about a year for us to really, I think, launch.
Growing up in the middle-class suburb of Bellevue outside Seattle, the girls felt themselves apart from their super-straight high school and found music to be an escape, especially the music of the Beatles, an early influence on them.
It was just an obsession, like, with all three of us. Like, every day after school, we were obsessed with getting together and playing guitars. And, like, our parents couldn't believe it, you know, what are they doing up there? Like, are they,
Well, they could hear it. It came through
yeah, they could hear we were actually, like, doing it, but why? You know, girls were supposed to go out on dates and go, and, like, we did that, too, but, I mean, it was really this obsession, and it continued and turned into this.
The Beatles will be remembered as groundbreakers in both lyrics and style. And how does Ann want to be remembered?
Well, I'd like to be remembered as someone who opened the door for women to just do whatever the heck they want.
And how do you get along with Anne?
Really well. We have a really close thing. We keep each other happy and laughing, you know.
Yeah.
Yep, same with me. I really love her and get along with her well.
You live together too?
No, we each have our own houses.
While women had been prevalent in blues, folk, and country music, there really wasn't much of a representation on the rock and roll side.
Yeah, there's a definite need, and there has been that since we were little kids. I think that's the reason why we just started to do rock and roll, because we started so young that we didn't know what we were. You know, we weren't anything yet. We were just these little creatures with no gender yet. About, 8 years old or something. So we just went, why can't we play guitars? Okay,
In the 70s, Heart would score a number of hits including Magic Man and Barracuda. As the 80s progressed, members of the band would begin to leave. The Wilson sisters would end up as the only members of the band remaining.
It was during the work on the album that trouble brewing within the group came to a boil. From the early days of the group, Ann had been romantically involved with Mike Fisher, Heart's sound man. Nancy's love was Roger Fisher, Mike's brother and Heart's flamboyant lead guitarist. But now Nancy and Roger had broken up. things were turning sour for Mike and Ann. Personally and musically, the Wilson sisters and the Fisher brothers were moving apart. Mike, a co-producer of their last album, wasn't working on this one. Roger, who only occasionally visited the studio, had yet to record a note.
Well, I think for a long time everyone knew that it wasn't working. It just mainly manifested itself in Roger not contributing to the music very much. So finally, we just all mutually decided that it was the best thing. And I wouldn't say it was a surprise, but like with the terminating of any relationship, when the reality of it hits you, it really hits you, you know. No, I think that I understand what most stars have been through to get where they are now, so it doesn't seem like so much of a magical thing to me anymore.
Do you have the feeling of having made it at this point? Is there more yet to do?
I think that there's never a time when you can say you've totally arrived. I mean, the concept is void, you know. I just mainly want to be comfortable in it, you know, because there have been times when we've had these big pushes, you know, to sell records and things, and it's always really manifested itself on me as being really uncomfortable and alienating.
Obviously, there are times when you're surrounded by thousands of people in the concert setting, but on a day-to-day basis, can it be a lonely life?
Yeah. It's really quite lonely, you know.
Even just in the group chemistry itself, the guys and the girls within the group, it's a real dichotomy because Nance and I run the group, and so here are these guys that are just these real nice sort of mellow guys who take it, you know, who can handle working for women, with and for, especially with.
According to Ann, their approach to making albums is surprisingly casual.
Heart usually makes albums just by the seat of its pants, you know. I mean, we're usually writing at the time we're in there, you know, in the car on the way down to the studio, you know, 10 months before, songs that we wrote 2 years ago. Just like it's this real living and changing thing with Heart. And like we don't usually write all the songs and then really rehearse them and go in with it all set up, you know. Although I wish we could sometimes, it would be a lot more of a secure feeling. but I enjoyed just letting it breathe.
To you, the high point of your life up until this moment in time?
Professionally, I think the highest point in my life, and you probably won't believe me, is right now. And I don't mean money-wise. I mean, I'm coming back to a place where I want to do it. I really want to do it again. And we've spent since 1970, when was it, 5 or 4, on the road every year like a hamster on a wheel. Make an album, go on tour, make an album, go on tour. It pours you out like a pitcher. And we came off the road after all those years of that, numb. Like, I never wanted to write another song as long as I lived. I didn't want to listen to music. I didn't care. I was poured out. I was just whoosh. So, like now, 2.5 months have gone by, and I feel it coming back. And that, to me, is more inspiring. That makes me feel so high that I think that if it keeps on, it's the highest I've been, you know, just inside myself. See, there are a lot of problems with being a rock star. Of course, I won't go into them now because they're obvious. You've heard them all before, you know. I mean, money, all this kind of stuff. But I think the overall effect is that you become this isolated creature, and you're lucky if you have this circle of people around you who love you enough to be honest with you, to not just be yes men, to tell you and we're lucky enough to have that. And so now that we're home and the fire is being rekindled, you know, artistically inside myself and inside Sue Ennis and inside Nancy, and we've got, like, these people around us, things are getting just greater than ever.
Heart's 1970s albums were all multi-platinum sellers, but their first albums of the 1980s had a considerable drop-off, with only one of them even reaching gold status, but they would bounce back with the highest-selling era of the band. Albeit the band did give in to the rush of 1980s rock music cliches, with a pop sound infused by outside songwriters, as well as the 1980s dress codes.
Because, you know, life has got to have edges. If you don't have your edges, if you're not feeling your edges, then you're not alive.
And we're basically river stones, and the river is smoothing us out as it goes by.
The trickle of time upon our lives, ancient songs cry out to you.
But things would drop off again as the 1990s carried on. The band has yet to recapture platinum status.
Suddenly, all of a sudden, we looked around ourselves and we were in a lifeboat surrounded by water. Our true artistic whole selves were somewhere on a beach, and we were going, "Hey, see you later." And
There were so many people involved.
yeah, it was such a big machine.
1987's Bad Animals was another big hit, and it gave the band their second #1 song, Alone. But it was obvious to everyone that Ann had gained a lot of weight. Obvious, that is, to everyone but Ann.
I'm probably the opposite of what an anorexic is, in that the definition of an anorexic is someone who has a distorted body image. You know, well, I have that too. I always think I look better than I do.
But to the people trying to market Heart, Ann's weight was viewed as a liability. And especially when it came to their music videos, Ann became the subject of a full-scale cover-up.
You know, we are a commercial world, and everything's flashy and sexy, and I think it made it harder for Ann, and I think it made it harder for the record company to look at her in the same light.
Nancy was suddenly in the forefront. Nance became the group pinup girl, and Ann didn't like that.
It was idiotic. It was Nancy as a body, you know, like what outrageous body situations can we put Nancy's beautiful body in?
The gold mold.
Right,
Remember the gold mold? They carved out this thing that looked like they poured molten gold in, and then out comes the golden girl.
And then they would have me in a welder's outfit.
Ann found only partial relief on the road. Audiences would give her standing ovations night after night, but the reviews would never mention that.
No matter how much energy or heart or soul I poured into my singing, how much emotion and sincerity I did it with. In the morning there'd be this review that would say, "Oh, you know, what's wrong with her? How tragic, you know." In the place of the once svelte, raven-haired siren, there's now this red-headed monster.
And perhaps worst of all, even some of the people closest to Ann turned against her.
The guys in the band felt that they were getting bad reviews because of what she looked like, that if she would just get herself together, quote unquote, that it would be in the band's best interest and it would be better for everybody involved.
I was also being bombarded from all sides by the record people, company, and the management, and within the band. "Can you talk to Ann for me? You gotta talk to her, you know. Tell her if she could just lose 20 pounds. We'd all be a lot richer."
In 1995, the sisters decided to take a break from the constant pressures of being in Heart, dedicating more time to their families.
Ann and Nancy knew that incarnation of Heart was over.
We just had come to the end of our ability to be in that type of a band, and so of course that meant letting a couple of people go again, which we had to do. But we have never felt bad about that one, because that was we were saving ourselves. Before we were saving the band, this time we saved ourselves.
But they did have a side project called the Lovemongers, citing that there may never be another Heart band.
Well, they're no longer of Heart, they're now of the Lovemongers. Evening Magazine caught up with these singing sisters at their at-home studio in Seattle. Yes, that's Ann Wilson, and yes, that's Nancy Wilson there under the picture of Elvis. But this band isn't Heart. you're in the living room of Ann's Northwest home, watching their other band, the Lovemongers, rehearse for an upcoming concert tour. And after years of mega hits, touring with a mega band, having mega hair, this is just the break the Wilson sisters needed.
It's a really relaxed thing. We laugh a lot. It's very relaxed. It's not like being in the Army. There were times in the 80s when Hart felt like being in the Army because, you know, you had to be there at a certain time and it was really big. And
huge!
Huge.
They just need to stretch out, you know, like, you can't go on all your life touring, make an album, tour, make an album, you know, the old hamster on a wheel. So you need to address some new areas of art, and yeah, I have thought of that. I've had a lot of movie offers and stuff, but none that I thought were right. I mean, it's just always, you play the Rose, you play Janis Joplin, you play, you know, you're an Americathon, you're an American pop. I mean, always as the hard-drinking, hard-swearing, you know, red-headed mama, which I'm not, you know. And, I mean, there's got to be more to being a female rock singer than that, you know. I mean, there has to be one that you could like, maybe, who isn't this tragic person who does herself in, you know.
These sisters never had to go far to find their muse. They've always had each other.
She's really funny, I must say that up front, because I've known her, you know, since she was born. So, I know. That's Jolly Wilson. She's 3 years old, and she is our protectorate here at the house. This is Beagie. He's just a pup. He's my daughter's dog.
Along with her solo albums, she has sold over 50 million units, with 2 Grammy Awards and an induction into the 2013 class of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. As Heart's 2024 tour has shown, there are no signs of stopping now.
If you had it to do over?
I'd probably work at Colonel Sanders. No, I'd do this again. There would be a few fine-tunings I would make, so I wouldn't have to go through some of the excruciatings again. But, you know, heck, I can't run a cash register. I can't type. I can sing.